Surf's up, guys, it's Mauisnake here, and today I just wanted to do a quick little video about my thoughts on the m0NESY and torzsi moves. I'm obviously watching a very high quantity of games between these two players because I'm working every We Play Academy League, so I've seen what they've done for the past 2 seasons, and beyond that, I'm watching some of their games just to make sure I'm prepping adequately when I'm doing analyst work for the league. So I think these are pretty good moves in terms of the state of G2 and Mouz, but as you can see in the subtext here that it's G2's gamble and Mouz's desperation, I'm going to get into kind of some of my reasoning as to why that's how I would frame these moves. So G2 is taking a gamble with m0NESY. Everybody is propping m0NESY up to be the next superstar simple-esque player, and I'll tell you right now, mechanically, he's actually not that far off, and that's insane. Like, it's actually just bewildering to listeners probably who haven't seen him play that I can even say that. But it's true. He is simply faster than every other tier 2/tier 3 opper out there. His accuracy and consistency with his mechanics is incredibly high, and his rifle use is also exceptional. I will say it's a gamble, though, because of the obvious fact that m0NESY hasn't played very much against higher level competition, and he hasn't really played at big lands, which I'm sure G2 are striving to win. But I want to show you guys something pretty quickly here where I came up with the stats for m0NESY, and as you can see right here, this is the maps that he's played in his career on HLTV. He only has 177 maps played. That's not a lot. That's a for context, I've played myself about 5-6 seasons of ESEA Premier, and I have myself about like not too many less than this because of the qualifiers and other things I played too. So I'm not like it's a small sample size, but that being said, he has dominated his competition in it. You know, he's putting up insane numbers on all these maps. But something that I want you to look closely at is the quantity, the number of maps that he played just in general on the various maps. We see that the most maps he played has been Vertigo. That's something that Navi Jr. have been kind of liking as a map. Then we get Mirage, and we get and that's, you know, another map that you kind of thrive when you're just mechanically incredibly skilled. And m0NESY, he's an FPL farmer. He does incredibly well even in those high skill lobbies. But you know, that's something where you don't really always need a team to work around. So it's going to draw into question some of his other numbers, like the Dust 2 one. He's got 29 maps played. So it's not that he's only playing Dust and Mirage. Like, he's not a one trick in that regard. But you look at some of the other ones, like some of the current maps in the meta, Nuke and Ancient, he has great stats on them, but he only has 7 maps played total of both of those. So he's going to have to get caught up to speed very quickly with what the tier 1 meta is for those maps. And being, you know, a primary opper, you're supposed to be the highest rated best player for your team. Every team that has world beater aspirations, Navi, Vitality, you know, what Astralis was, their oppers are the best players in the world. Like, G2 is one of the lone exceptions where Nico has been their best player and he's a rifler. But for them to really compete, it needs to be more than just Nico and Hunter. m0NESY has to be the third star. He should probably be better than Hunter, in all honesty, if they really want to start winning tournaments. So that's kind of what we're putting him up against. So that's why it's difficult to see that if it's m0NESY moving forward with G2 and the system that he wants to implement, it's going to be a little bit different than what m0NESY's used to. I mean, you look at some of these maps, Vertigo, he gets to play A ramp every single round. He does move around a little bit, but he really just kind of fights A ramp over and over and over again. And when you're against tier 2 competition, that's not that hard. You know, their nade protocols, the way they're forcing you off of angles, it's not as strong as the best teams in the world. And when you're against counter oppers who are incredible too, you know, who are going to know what plays you want to make. I will say that it's telling, but not surprising, that his Inferno rating does go down. It's a 1.16 compared to all these other ones that are above 1.2, 1.3, you know, it's a little bit lower, and that's because Inferno is just notoriously one of the hardest maps for operas to play and to have success on. And even though I said that m0NESY is still very proficient with the rifle at his level, it still is a bit of a drop off, and he can't really find the same level of impact that he does on maps where operas thrive a little bit more, like Vertigo and like Mirage. So you'll see that also beneath that the number of games that he's played against top 30 teams is pretty low. He's only played 12 maps total. His rating is still good, and I think it's reassuring that he doesn't actually fall off against top 30 competition. In fact, sometimes his stats get better in the incredibly small sample size of games that he's played. But that's just something to point out there, that 12 of his 177 games, so that's less than 10% of his games, are against top 30 teams. And G2 is not playing against top 30 teams. They're playing against top 10 teams. And m0NESY has just pretty much no games. He has no games against top 10 teams. So that's just putting that out there. It's really a little bit tough to believe that he's just going to be able to thrive right away. I mean, he's played only 2 maps against top 20 teams, by the way. So just putting that all out there. Let's move on to torzsi, though, because he's another we play star. And there's going to be a little less nuance in the stats here. I kind of wanted to show a video, but I think that I just want to get this video out. And honestly, the thing with torzsi is that I want to liken his playstyle, if you haven't watched him, to Poison. And by that, he's incredibly good, mechanically speaking. But that being said, that's kind of like the lowest common qualifier nowadays for telling that an opera is going to be good. His strengths are in that he can find a lot of openings with very little setup for Mouz NXT. Like, he just finds fights. He's able to do a lot with very little. Like, they aren't actually always setting him up as much as, you know, they might think they are compared to tier 1 teams. Like, it's not always like a boost or like a crazy flash or anything. Like, torzsi just takes a lot of fights, and he's still able with his mechanics to rise above his competition. But as you can see here, Mouz NXT, you know, they're kind of smurfing when they're in the We Play Academy League, but when they play against top 30 opponents, that's when he kind of falls off. These stats, by the way, are just when he's joined Mouz NXT, so it's the last 5 or so months. And you see that against top 30 opponents, it's a 1.05 rating. So that's a pretty significant drop-off, all things considered. And I want to try to explain to you guys why that happens to torzsi. It's that torzsi very frequently, like Poison, just is very, very aggressive. He wants to keep fighting. He looks for highlight plays a lot, and I've seen the amount of times I've seen him in the Academy League just push through smokes and just find 2 kills. It's fun, it's entertaining, it's astounding. But that kind of play doesn't really work at the highest level. And when we saw the heights that Complexity were able to reach when they still had their initial lineup, the Juggernaut lineup with Oboe, Poison in the beginning was very good, but we saw how much he fell off as teams started to get a beat on him. Once they know he's always going to push through the bench smoke on Mirage, once they know he's going to push through the CT smoke on Inferno to try to take one shot at the B site, like, those kind of plays get caught out. And that's where I don't think torzsi is actually at the same level as Acor. And this is why I label this whole kind of move for the Mouz as a desperate move, because they've recognized that the structure that they're playing with under Dexter is not working for Acor. Acor always worked in incredibly structured teams with Mad Lions, with Tricked, under Hunden, and those kind of rosters set up Acor to thrive. But once he joined a very loose style under Dexter, where they're defaulting 80+% of the rounds, then he started playing badly, and everybody started saying Acor is one of the worst tier 1 operas out there. And for his team, he was. That's a fair assessment based off of what he was accomplishing or not accomplishing in his team. But it's not a fair assessment in that if you put him on a different roster, he would do incredibly well. Like, Acor is the kind of player that would probably do very well on like a Big or on Astralis. Like, those kind of teams would have loved to have Acor. Obviously, you know, the Danish, I'm not talking about language barriers here for the big side, but really, like, those are the kind of teams that could use Acor to the fullest effect, and that's something that Dexter just didn't know how to do. He didn't know how to set up Acor in ways, and Acor himself, this does fall onto him too, that he didn't take the initiative in his rounds to find enough openings. And that's why we saw the opening kill percentage for players like for even Rops increase with the in the history of this current or previous Mouz lineup. So Torzsi is going to work better in the Dexter system. I will say that, because Torzsi is always looking for initiative to a fault. He's looking for so many kills that he dies against better opponents. And will he win a lot of fights that he shouldn't just because his mechanics are good? Yeah, but the thing is, once you start facing the best riflers in the world, they will punish you for bad peaks, especially on zero ping on LAN. I think Torzsi's playstyle is very online. It's a very online style, and it's not like, you know, I'm saying that in the regard that it's actually the peak, like the ping difference when peaking with the op sometimes can help him, as opposed to, it's not like, it's obviously not like he's cheating. I think he's super legit and he's super good. Like, that's, I hate how that has two connotation or two possible interpretations, the word online, but no, he's definitely very skilled. It's just that his style is more aggressive than you would probably want from a LAN opper. So those are my takes on m0NESY and Torzsi. I wanted to just give a little bit more detail. I frequently comment on roster moves on my Twitter, and I just wanted to do something a little bit more long form. This wasn't even as long as I wanted to get it to be, but hopefully you guys just are able to take a little bit of insight. Hopefully you guys are able to now kind of take this with you when you guys watch Torzsi and m0NESY as they play on tier 1 rosters, because I think that, I'll just say this, I think m0NESY is going to need a few months, but I think that his attitude and his work ethic and really every real sign that I've heard from anyone behind the scenes about m0NESY indicates that he should perform well in a few months. Torzsi, I actually think, will be the opposite. I think Torzsi is going to do incredibly, like, very well for the first 2 months of his time on Mouz NXT, or not NXT, of Mouz, and then I think he's going to fall off, because I don't know if he has the ability. Nothing has indicated to me that Torzsi can reinvent his game. I think that I'm obviously giving caricatures of Torzsi's playstyle here, in that it's a very aggressive, kind of flashy highlight style, but those kind of things are hard habits to break. And it's gonna take a lot for the coaching staff, for Dexter, for his teammates to reel him in a little bit. So, because I think that's 100% necessary, and I think he's gonna. I personally just think he's gonna go the route of poison. I think he's gonna do very well in the beginning. They're gonna probably hit some surprise results, because people won't know how to play against Torzsi, but then they're going to figure out in probably 2-3 tournaments. So thanks, guys. As always, being toxic is a choice.